First of all, a few words about Essex County College. Essex County College is the community college in Newark, New Jersey. We have 73% of our students are underrepresented minorities, 48% are African Americans, and 25% are Hispanic, which it's important to say that's mimic the surrounding area demographic. Now, a few words about Garden State LSAMP. Garden State LSAMP, you know that LSAMP is Louis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation. It's a program funded by National Science Foundation. There are many LSAMPs in the country. Our LSAMP is Garden State LSAMP. The goal of the LSAMP basically to increase the number of underrepresented minorities in STEM. STEM, as you know, is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Garden State LSAMP is a partnership of originally 9 schools, now it's 8 schools of New Jersey. You can see them right here: Montclair, William Patterson, Philly Dickinson, Rutgers Newark, Kean University, NJCU, Essex and Essex County College, and Rutgers New Brunswick. I have to say that Essex County College is the only community college in this alliance. Rutgers Newark is the it's a leading school, and the reason that we were invited originally into the alliance because we're basically across the street from Rutgers Newark, and it was easy for us to work together. So the goal of the grant for 4-year schools was to double the number of graduates in STEM in 5 years. And the goal was reached. The goal for Essex County College was to increase number of students transferring to these schools. During my first year in LSAMP, I get together with several active students, and I asked them to come up with questions from their experience, from experience of their friends, that they think prevent students from transferring to 4-year schools, because transferability is the big and important problem. We know we all expect 100% of our STEM students to transfer to 4-year schools and get a bachelor's degree. So the students came up with the following questions. So the first question, so we came up with this survey. The first question was, do you plan to transfer to a 4-year school? And then in the second question, what might prevent you from transferring to a 4-year school? Students named 5 major factors. The factor number 1, obviously, is financial problems. Most of our students are first generation of students, but also many of our students support their families, and financial problem is, of course, the major problem. But there are another 4 important and interesting factors. The first one is family problem, not enough information about other colleges, not enough motivation to continue my education, and the last one, poor academic preparation. We also added the third question just to help us to establish the program. What extra services would you like to have at Essex that would help you to transfer and be successful at the 4-year school? And again, students came up with 3 questions: better advisement into Essex classes, advisement information about other colleges, and tutoring. We also asked for the subject. And guess what? I have to mention that the survey was taken by 193 students. It was distributed in one of the events. The students who participated in the survey was not just STEM majors. And guess what was the major factor that students in community college think that prevent them from transferring? The major factor was financial, but if you take financial so let's not consider the financial one. Let's look at the other 4. And you can see that 37 students said that not enough information about other colleges. And if you look and the services that they think would help them to transfer, honestly, I personally expect tutoring to be the major service, as usual math, something that they struggle, or science, physics. But to my surprise, with all the effort that Essex County College make with transfer days, and Essex being just across the street from Rutgers, Newark, and NJCU, NJIT, the major factor, that's the major services that students said that would help them to transfer, as you can see, 48.7%, 94 students. The tallest column is information about other colleges. So, and that's what Garden State LSAMP addresses. That's a major mission of Garden LSAMP, to establish better collaboration between the community, between community college, Essex Community College, and four-year schools of New Jersey. So we did many things. There are many initiatives that has been done in the past. It's already almost 9 years. We have a monthly seminars where we invite guest speakers from four-year schools. Guest speakers usually speak about their research, but also answer questions about the schools. That helps, because as I said, and as I mentioned, and I think that's a case in most of the community colleges, that our students are first generation of students who are getting college degree, and if you ask them where do they plan to go in like informal conversation, guess what they say? They said, I'm going where my brother goes, or where my neighbor tell me to go, or you know, my friend goes there. They are afraid to explore. They don't have parents who can advise them to go outside Essex County College and to explore. They don't have parents who have friends who can give advice. So they usually follow their brothers, their sisters, and it's very important for community colleges to have some kind of collaboration with four-year schools, where we can either bring people from four-year schools to speak to students, or bring students to four-year schools before they decide about their transferability, to meet students in four-year schools, to meet faculty in four-year schools, to break this wall of, you know, they're scared, they're afraid to go out of Essex County College. So that is one of the LSAMP goals. Also, when I get funding for the program, I try to avoid you know, the way we usually distribute the funding in community colleges. Usually most of the grants, most of the funding goes to students who academically struggle to succeed with whatever, math or chemistry or physics, and goes to tutoring, buying those programs like Alex and other programs. I divided the grant in two parts. One part went to tutoring program, but I also try to help students who want to do something besides just learning, besides academics. And many of my students were very, you know, they're bright students. They try to participate in some contests, and they are interested in doing research. So part of the grant, the big part of the grant, is undergraduate research. So every summer we have about 10 to 20 ECC students participating in research projects. And I started to take students out of Essex to do research in 2004. That was a NASA grant. It was a collaboration with Stevens Institute of Technology, and we were able to support about 6 students. So there were 6 students the grant was for 3 years. So the grant, it was Stevens grant. We were just partnering school. And I found it's very successful that students who we noticed that students who go out of Essex, the they become more motivated, and that was, as I said, that was a big success. Unfortunately, the grant was only for 3 years, so the funding ended, so I started in 2004. The funding ended 3 years later, 2007. Then there was a struggle for 2 years to find some money to support students, because students were coming and asking to continue this research program. So in 2008, in August of 2009, my dean called me and said, tomorrow there is a meeting, we're starting a new program, Garden State LSAM, can you go and, and run the program? Can you go to the meeting and will you agree to run the program? I hesitated at the beginning because I just had a baby, like a month. I had a month-old baby, and I was thinking, I was trying to take it easy, but then my dean found the right words. She said, you will have money for summer research. And again, I strongly believe in summer research, so I said, yes, I'll take the grant. And for the past 9 years, we have over 100 students participating in this research, and Dmitry will tell you all the data we collected and how successful this program was and is. Okay, you can see some slides that are Essex County College students doing research, their posters. Also, besides doing research in four-year schools, the way the program works, we place students in research laboratories of four-year schools. Garden State LSAM allowed me to expand the program, and over this past 8 years, students, as community college students, did research in Montclair, Kane, Rutgers, Newark, Rutgers, New Brunswick, NJCU, and we're still collaborating with Stevens. Again, students are placed in research laboratory for 6 weeks, and they're paid about $1,000 stipend. They come about 4 days a week, 6 hours a day, and as a result, at the end of the program, they come up with the poster, and also we publish a brief abstract, an abstract of their research in the proceedings of the conference. So when students graduate from a community college, they don't only have presentation in their resume, they also have a publication. And over the years, students come back to me, and they told me many stories how this program impacted their lives. And there are many stories that during job interviews, after they graduated from four-year school, they are asked about the program, and they said, we believe that's what gave us a job. Also, we should remember that many students who transferred to four-year schools, no matter how good their grades are, when they apply for internship in four-year schools, the professors sometimes looking for people who already have experience. And that's put community college students in disadvantage if they transfer and other students in the four-year school already had experience. So having experience while students are in community college put them ahead of students in four-year schools. So that's an important thing to remember. As I said, we had heard many stories, but we decided to check if the program is successful as a whole. And we spent almost a year and a half, if not more, to collect data to justify that what we believe is true indeed is true. So Dmitry will tell you about the details of our study.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the study we ran. Although we had over 100 students, we were really only able to get 60 of them participate in the survey. So one of the issues that we ran into is because we started this so late in the process, right? We hadn't been updating this. We only started doing this about 2 years ago. We were only able to get about 60 of them. And so first thing I'm going to talk about is how this can be done in a better way. We struggled for about 6 months trying to figure out what is the most effective way of getting this data, right? It's nice if you have an agency within the school that can go out and get the data for you, but a lot of times as faculty, we really don't know how to go out and get this data. So one of the things that what we worked with, what I ended up finding because of my experience in industry, was we wanted to create a survey, right? So first thing I'm going to go through is talk about the survey that we made, right? And the simplest way of getting the information that we want. So we spent a bit of time coming up with the survey. It was very short, right? It was 4 pages, because one of the things we find is if we give students really long surveys, well, if I got really long surveys, I don't really fill them out, right? You start with question 1, and they usually say, every question that you put in, you lose 50% of your audience. So you really want to focus on the things that you want to get out of this. So we use SurveyMonkey, not that we're promoting it, it was just free software, right? And the key was we didn't want to spend the money, we didn't have the money to really spend on this. We wanted to give as much to the students, right? If we could support 10 students versus 9 students, we'd rather do that. So the questions that we came up with were, one, this wasn't anonymous because we actually want to track the specific students, right? So we told them that ahead of time that, right, you got to give your name, and then, what demographic they fell into, right? Because those were the key features that we wanted to know. So that was page 1. Then page 2 was simply, did you graduate from ECC, right? Then what did you do when you graduated? And right, what did you do when you graduated? After graduating, where did you go, right? Did you go to work? Did you go to school? Did you stay in the STEM fields? And then the last one, how did you like the summer experience, right? We want to leave it a little bit open-ended, so we wanted students to give us feedback, right? Because sometimes you can't ask the questions, right? Like, was this more successful, was that? And they tell us the emphasis as to what they found was what was best suited for them. So what we ended up seeing, so the demographics that we had, as Nadia mentioned, it was very similar to the surrounding demographics of our environment, right? Like where Newark sits, predominantly the minority-based, right? We had mostly African-American, Hispanic students, and then we had Asians, and then we had all types of students, but we didn't really specifically target one or the other, just kind of how the class is formed, and we took the students. Now, one thing we want to mention is this: the students we chose were not A students, were not all B students. We had B students, we had A students, we had C students. The main thing we wanted to look at was their motivation, right? Can they succeed? And it was honestly a test that we wanted to do because we had them in our classes. And we wanted to see, okay, we teach them Physics 1, Physics 2. They do the summer research program. Are their grades going to get better? Are they going to be more motivated? Are things actually going to be better in the long run? It was the test that we want to see. So remember, all of the data for the students that we have are not these ideal perfect students, right? That's kind of what the talk was in the morning. We wanted to really see how can we improve their overall motivation. So what we found was this. Of the 60 students, 54 of them graduated, right, from ECC. Now, 6 of them did not graduate. Of those 6, the ones that didn't graduate, some of them decided this just wasn't for them, and they left and did something else. But then also some of them got this ability to transfer to a school before graduating, right? And it's kind of an important factor, right? We want students to graduate, but if they get into a good school, like I had students in the past that got into Columbia, and they come to me and say, should I graduate or should I go to Columbia? Well, answer is very simple: go to Columbia. Don't, if you got the opportunity, take it. So we had a very high success rate of these students that are graduated. So of the ones that transferred, right, because this data is still in the process, so some of these students are still in school. 4 of them went to the workforce. The ones that after leaving ECC graduated this is from 4-year schools, right, from whether it was Rutgers, Stevens, NJIT, they transferred, either they're still in school or they've already graduated. And what we see here is some of them got opportunities to get the job, so they went to the workforce. Others, they're still in school and they're pursuing their degrees. And we've seen that their grades have actually gotten better. They're more motivated in class because they get to see this relationship of, okay, well, if I put in the effort, I get a reward, right? And now, one of the things that we, the notes, I forget. One of the things that we saw was this. A lot of these kids are scared, right? They were afraid of, can they succeed in the workforce, right? Or can they succeed in the scientific, right? In a scientific background? Do they want to actually go into engineering? They don't know, right? They're afraid when they go into it because they go from Essex, very small classes, then they go to, let's say, a school like NJIT, right? Or Rutgers or Stevens. Some of the class sizes, you have 200 students in a class. and they feel like they get lost. So the goal of this was to actually have, the goal was to show students that they can do this, right? They worked alongside, the projects that they did were on the same level as students that are getting their bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and PhDs. If you saw the slides beforehand, they're working in real labs, doing real research. And the research that they've done has actually gone into publications, has helped out. And so when we showed them, it's not that you're doing a small part, but that small part is part of a very large initiative. And so after they graduated, right, we found that most of the students ended up getting jobs in the STEM field. Because the goal is this, right? For STEM, we want 100% graduation from 100% transferability in STEM, because associate's degree is not a terminal degree in engineering. So we want them to transfer, and then once they transfer, we want them to stay, right? Because if they get this education in electrical engineering, you don't want them to go off and do something else. The goal is for them to stay in the STEM field and become scientists. And we found that after these programs, 32 of them ended up going into the STEM field workforce. What's even more interesting, and this is where that open-ended section came in, we saw that most of them do get a lot of achievements, patents, awards, promotions, right? We saw them come back to us, and the goal was, they came back to us and they said, well, we've done well, right? I've gotten this promotion. Now I am the manager of the company. I am a senior scientist. I'm a senior engineer. And so I wanted to see the data and actually prove that, in fact, yes, we were able to succeed in the goal of doubling the amount of students that graduate in STEM. But we want this to be a long-term thing, right? Do they get the jobs? Do they get the promotions? Does this help them out in the long run? And so we got actually very nice data where that's concerned. All right, so in summary, we saw that more than 85% of the students still remain in some form of STEM-related field, right? They started in STEM, they ended up in STEM. I know this may be, we say all the students that go into STEM, we want them to stay in STEM. The nice thing about this program is it lets students at an early on point figure out if they even want to be in STEM. Because you have students, my dad is an engineer, so I'm going to be an engineer. But then they do it and they realize, okay, maybe this is not for me. Or they realize, hey, I got an opportunity to work in a lab, in a math lab, right? Like to do quantitative modeling. And they realized they love that field, but they wanted to be electrical engineers, but they saw that they were well suited for this. So it helps them guide, it's self-guiding in the sense of they get to figure out where they want to actually go. They get to collaborate with the students. They have one-on-one conversations. They are part of the same meeting. So every other week we have a meeting where they present information to us about what they're doing over the summer. And they also, in their own lab groups, present. So they're forced to stand up in front of their peers now, right? In front of the postdocs, in front of the PhD students, in front of the master students, in front of the bachelor students, and present the information as to what they did that week, right? And it helps honestly build a lot of confidence, because I've seen these students come back to my class. They're now not afraid to raise their hand and answer a question, right? They ask substantially deeper questions in class, right? It's not this superficial learning of, well, okay, I learned my equation, I plug in my equation into physics, because you plug it in, okay, I get my answer, I graduate, I pass the class, but now they see how does the class relate back to what it is that they're doing. We also saw of the polled respondents, 90% graduated from ECC with an associate's degree. After leaving, 93.3%, right, transferred to four-year schools, which is huge. The goal is 100%, but 93%, we're as close as you can get. And those that went to the workforce, 86%, almost 87% got a job in STEM. So we see that if we started them on the right path, we gave them the proper motivation, right? It wasn't about the grades, and I gotta emphasize this enough. We really wanted to test to see, we pick students every year based on why, like we have a conversation, why do you want this, right? We want them, why is it, right? It's not just the A students who do well, right? The ones that do well always do well, but we want to see, can we improve that C student and make them a B student or an A student over the long run? And then, so we said, more than 90% of students still remain in some form of STEM. Of those polled, almost 90% graduated from ECC. I think I already said this. Yeah, I think so. right? And then, they received careers in the STEM field. Okay, all right, I guess. So these are some of the quotes that we got from the students, right? How it impacted their lives, how it helped them, transfer to 4 years. We've actually even had students that have gone on to now get PhDs, which is very impressive, right? You look in the long run, and I speak a little bit from both sides. So I worked in industry for a while before I went into academia, and what Nadia said is very true, that we have students that come in and they told us, this summer research really helped get them their job. I mean, I've had those students, and we constantly hire people and we talk to them, and they say, I want to have a conversation, can they do real work? Okay, you can read a book, you can learn a manual, wonderful. Can you work well with others? Can you do what it is that I ask of you? If I give you a project, are you motivated to get it done? And when they see that they can actually do work on the level of a PhD student, it's actually, I've gone to some of the meetings, very impressive. You see some of these, some of them come in with this hunger. They do more work than some PhD students over the summer. Maybe not to the same caliber, but then it's like this constant battle of, can I be better than the next person? Can I do more? And then they learn about schools. They get to actually go to the outside, right? I coordinate the Stevens side, so we take students about 6 to 10 every summer. We bring them over there. They get to see something different than Newark, right? They get to see Stevens. Some of the students have never actually been to Hoboken or don't go into the city. So we take them on the PATH train, and it's right there. Go bring them into the city, and they look around. They're like, oh, wow, can we hang around the campus? I'm like, yes, you guys get IDs like normal students. You have access to absolutely everything a normal student does, right? And so they invest into the culture, right? And they see where they can go. It's not just they're stuck. Not that we're promoting to go to one school or another, but it's that idea of they get to see what's out there, right? They don't have enough information. They don't know that Stevens exists. They didn't, right? Other than Rutgers and NJIT, even sometimes they don't even know about those two when it's right across the street from them. They get to see what's around them, right? And the goal is, from us, from the community college side, is to help make sure that the students grow and do well.
Just want to add one more thing that we should keep in mind, that with programs like this, we help students with networking, because our students, some of them are very good to making relationships, to make friends, but by taking them out of community college and placing them in university laboratories, we give them a chance to build some networking out of Essex. I know for a fact that it helps students later on when they not only look for a job, but when they apply to schools and they apply for scholarship. If they do well during this summer program, professors give them excellent recommendation, and I know as a result, many students get scholarships to get into school. They also, as I said, make connections. So we have to keep in mind that we must give our students some way to build this networking while they're in community college, not just graduate them and let them on their own to deal with outside world. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. I invite questions from you folks. We do have 2 microphones up front. If you have a question, when you come forward, you please just state your name and your campus affiliation, and the presenters will respond to your questions. Are there any questions from the audience? Let me start the process, because I have a couple of questions and just an observation. As I was listening to your presentation, what jumped out at me was that we have some evidence what works, and that's great. And if we know that it works, then we need to embellish that. Second thing is we know what the obstacles are from the study, and that gives us a roadmap in terms of the kinds of things that we can do to overcome some of those obstacles to success. One of the questions that I have relates to how the students were selected. You indicated that they were selected based upon motivation. And the question I have specifically is, how did you assess their current level of motivation? And then it's a 2-part question. And then how did you, or what kinds of intervention did you employ to advance that level of motivation?
So there is always a formal application, but I prefer to interview students in person. And this interview. It's like informal interview with all the, so it tells me a lot about, I ask students what their goal is, what their interest is. Essay also help, but personal interview is very important, because one of the important factor for success is also organization skills. So I usually either speak personally to one of their professors, or ask for recommendation to make sure that students are organized, because if students are, what I noticed that even if students have 4.0 GPA, sometimes they apply to too many programs, they do too many things, and they not necessarily are very successful in research. So that was answer to a question that I have conduct personal interviews. The reason again that I do not always pick up the best students, because sometimes from conversation I can tell that students try to do too many things at the same time, and we all know research requires full commitment, at least for a short period of time. So otherwise, there's no success. Now, how to improve motivation? One thing that really improves motivation among community college students is to invite in September or October, when the program is over, to invite students to speak to their fellow students, to other students, about their experience. So almost every student who completed the summer research program present in front of other students. That is the best way to motivate like all the STEM students in the college, because this is the word of mouth, and they are also impressed that some of their classmates are able to accomplish something that they thought is way beyond their level. So that was, I can see from their eyes, I can see from the way they come to me after the seminar, they want to do it too. They want to be at that level. So that's the best way, I think.
Great. Before I ask another question, are there any questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Jesse from Bergen Community College.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have two questions. The first one, and I'll just ask both and I'll sit down.
Sure.
Do they get credit for these summer research programs through either Essex or through the college that they're doing the summer research program at? And I saw in the slides that you guys have a lot of great data on the students who went through the program. Is there any comparable data to students who also went to Essex who didn't go through the program, to try and see if there's any real...
So I will answer the first question and materialize the second question. So no, we did not have it, but this year was the first year when we have a capstone course in the math program, and it was tried for the first time that students attended the class that prepared them for the summer research, gave some basic, it was a computer science project that they were supposed to do, they will do during the summer, and they get credit for attending a class during spring semester that prepared them for the research. But they do not get, so far they did not get any credit from actually doing research itself. But we have this in mind, that capstone project, but we put capstone courses that we put in engineering and in math class. That is our goal, and we discuss it with NGI, we're working on the physics program, and we discuss with NGIT that we will build something like a course where students do research and get credit. Right now, they're paid a stipend. They don't pay for the credit, they are paid to do it. That's it. Payment is also one of the factors, so we don't get credit, give credit if they get stipend.
Okay, and then the second question, is there any comparable data? So loosely, yes. Loosely, yes, there is. The success rate has not been good. If you actually go online and look, I think the transfer rate is something on a whole 8%, maybe 9%. So it's very compared to our 90% that we have. But we're actually working on. So soon, yes, it's hard to get some data, and one of the reasons why we actually I talked about how to do the survey. Unfortunately, things change in schools, and we lose a lot of information. So one of the good resources is sending out all of this information, right? Constantly having them update. We kind of waited 8 years past when we started, so we lost some of the students, but also LinkedIn worked very well, right? You look and then you kind of look up students, oh look, they did this, they did this, they did this. But no, soon we're gonna have, hopefully we publish side-by-side data of, we know that it's good, but we just wanna show how good, right? They say about 8, 9%, but we wanna give a definite number, right? Like, is it 8 point whatever?
I want to thank you for this question, because absolutely that's one of the things that came to our mind when we think about publication, that it definitely should be compared against other students. You're absolutely right.
Good afternoon. First, I want to thank you for the presentation and sharing your information with us. I'm Yuris Pujos from Hudson County Community College, and my question deals with the timing. You mentioned that throughout the years you had about 100 students come, but do you focus on any specific cohort when you're doing the survey specifically, like any years? And then when you did that, you know, what I noticed you did say SurveyMonkey, but do you send them an email and you was hoping to everybody? And, you know, was there the delivery mechanism?
I have to clarify that. I'm sorry if I didn't during my presentation. I spoke a lot about Garden State LSAM, but Garden State LSAM started in 2009. Actually, the first program was 2010. So if you think about it, it's like 6 years, because 17 didn't happen yet. But we added the previous years that when I took students to Stevens, it was NASA grant. So the data comes from 2 different grants. So that's why we said it's 10 years, because it's from basically more than 10 years. It started from 2004 to 2016. So the number of students changes significantly. I have the students who did research early, like 2004, they give us more data about the jobs. We know their careers. They're already at this level. But they're was a very small group, because the money was much less. So we're talking about maybe 25 students before LSAMP. So from 2004 to 2008, it was like 25 students. They're the most interesting ones. But then we have like almost more than 120 because of money and everything. We basically try to contact anyone we can. Unfortunately, which I think it's very, I mean, it's shameful for our school and most of the school, that emails are not working. Once student graduate from a college, we can't access them unless we have some personal information. So it was basically, we tried to contact everybody from 2005 to last year, but again, you can understand that those who are recently, the students from 2000, let's say 11, they're still in school, so we cannot really collect information what happens with their jobs and their careers. But we try to get information from all this 100, maybe it was 150 students, but again, we were able to find and get response from 60, from 2005 to 2017. Now you want to add something to that? And you asked me how to find the students. I really think that there should be some way that anybody who run the grant should keep in mind from day one, which I didn't do, that we will need to collect data and to establish some way to find students. I know that NASA, for example, had a very hard time doing this, because they actually tried to collect data 10 years after the grant, and they basically try to personally track these people. So right now, from all the conferences, from all the people, from all the grants I've been attending and communicating, there is no good system that allows to track students in a normal way. The way I track them, I keep I keep contact with some of the students. I personally call them, I text message them the information, I tell them I need this for my research, and I find them through their friends, through their brothers and sisters if they were in my class. I find them even through when they change the names and get married. That's why it took that's why it took almost 2 years. It should have taken much less, and we had a good system. But it was not, an easy way to do it. But as Dmitry mentioned, LinkedIn is one of the way that probably is the best way to do it now through this social network where students put all the information.
Right, and one of the things we noticed is a lot of the newer students are on LinkedIn because I kind of talked to them about this, right? Things we didn't know back then. We talked to them about this and actually telling them that they should have this online resume, right, and keep updating it. It's a much better way, right? So that's one of the things that we can do to keep track of them, right? You can post the promotions that you've had, the jobs that you've had, what education you've gotten through that networking. So if anything, I'd probably recommend using some form of that because again, they get lost and some of them go to different countries and then that's it. So that's why it's change address and then very hard. And then honestly, we try to track them down. Your brothers, uncles, sisters, mother, and then you try to find this network and then we try. But I think the LinkedIn thing is going to be one of the better things. And that's what this slide is. Most of them are still in school, right? The interesting ones were the ones that have graduated, right? And they are in the workforce, and right. And so the data gets smaller and smaller. So we're hoping as time goes on, since we've been doing it every year, we send out this constant email. We keep track of them because we want to build the data over time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Hi, I'm Amber from Union County College. I have two questions as well. First is because we do a research program here, and we've been having some issues actually getting students interested in it, which I'm always surprised by. So what do you do, because we do, like we have the ones who did it, present their findings to try to get other students to come, and I think the biggest issue is we're just not having students coming to events. Same with transfer events. We've tried to bring in schools to come in so they can hear about the transfer school, and the students just don't seem to be interested in going to those. And my other question is, if you have a student, because at a community college, something we've run into is I think some students don't feel like they're ready for research, whether that's true or not, until they're about to graduate. And for our program, we can't pay for someone who's no longer our student. So if they want to do summer research and they're graduating in May, unfortunately, they're not able to participate in our research. So do you run into that same issue as well?
Yeah, you are not alone with this problem. Everybody have the same problem of attendance and everything. I'll tell you what worked for Essex, what worked for me. I don't know, all colleges are different, and what works for one college may not work for another. I personally come to classes. I do this, and it works. In terms of summer research, to motivate them to do summer research, I do tell them that they will present. They will be able to present, and this presentation will be in their resume. I tell them that they will be published, and this will be in their resume. And I look at them and tell them, when you will go to four-year school, and you will apply for internship, when you will apply for a job, if you have publication, when you are in 2 years, like if you have publication while in undergraduate, as undergraduate students, you immediately look like outstanding. You become outstanding student, because even in grad school, you know how much we work to get anything published. But to have publication while you're an undergraduate will put you as outstanding students. That's very important for them, because they're thinking about jobs. They're thinking about career. Another thing you can say about networking, that going out of community college, they build networking. And you can tell them a story. I'll tell it from my experience. I have a student who went to Stevens. He worked so hard. His professor just was so impressed by his work. I'm 100% sure that this professor either gave him recommendation, but as a result, student get full ride in Stevens. So these kind of things work, and this really talk to them. So another thing which is also important, they can try, as Dmitry said, they can have a chance to try if that's what they want to do, if the research is something they want to do. And that's a big thing too. And if they're not ready, you also can tell them that the research, and that's how it should be, the project should be based on their level. It's very important that students are not put in the project that is way beyond their understanding. And again, it's just being out of the community college. We're not expecting them to get any results. And I told them from the beginning, you don't expect to change the world in 6 weeks. It won't happen. But you will work in group, you will be exposed to new ideas, you will meet undergraduate students, and that's as a goal. The goal is not to produce, a major result. It's just, that's one thing. And about attendance of the event, again, going to classes helps a lot. You personally invite students to the event. And another thing, I know that many schools, it depends on your funding, they pay ambassadors, couple students who, active, and ask them to promote event. That's work miracles. Because if one student tells the other student, come to this event, they do it. So having ambassadors, I know we don't have that much funding to pay ambassadors, but I know that schools who have funding to pay ambassadors to pay students to promote activities, it really works. So don't do it yourself, let students do this. So that's best. Okay. I hope it was not too
Also,
long.
one other thing, if you can get some of the students that have gotten jobs, have them come in and talk about their interview experience, because they don't always believe us, right? We tell them this will get you a job. It's a lot better when it comes from the other students, and it takes a while in the beginning, right? It's you have the growing pains, right? It's an issue, but once you get that ball rolling, it's going to be a lot better. And then we actually sometimes have had to turn students down just because we've had the opposite problem sometimes. We have too many. And it really is just one of those things is if you go to the classrooms, you talk to them, you explain to them, and then you have previous students come in and just share their experiences, something will click and then it'll keep going.
And just last one thing that came to my mind, what helps also, in terms you said some students aren't ready, you can talk to science professors of upper level science classes. And ask them to recommend them a couple students. That's professors usually know who are ready and who are not ready to do research, and that's also a good source of excellent students. They also can tell you if the students are organized enough to be part of the program like that, mature enough.
Well, I have a question that I'm going to ask. We know that traditionally students who transfer to a 4-year school from a 2-year school, in that first semester, that transition can be problematic sometimes. What kind of evidence do you have that supports that the transfer students perform pretty well in regard to the native students at that 4-year institution?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, the main thing is, so the main thing that we showed them is, because once they did the research at those 4-year schools, right, so most of the time they end up transferring to that school where they did the research, right, because the faculty will recommend them. And honestly, we've had in the past, the faculty just falls in love with the students. They're like, okay, we're going to write you a letter of recommendation. You're going to come. You're going to do work with us. And they know they can compete with the other students. That's the main thing, right? It's all of the students can do it. It's not the issue of they can or they can't. It's do they have the confidence? And that's usually the biggest. They get into a class, right, like in here, right? It's daunting. You sit up here and then you have a very large room and then you got to talk. But once they see that they can actually do it, their grades are actually better than some of the students there.
That's terrific.
They come in and they're like, oh, professor, I remember when I took your class and I'm learning the same thing again. Like we teach physics. Yeah, I'm taking a statics course. I remember you taught us this in chapter whatever. And then it clicks, right? It's not so much just learn the material and then move on. But when they see that they can do it just like every other student and of all levels, they don't even have their associates and they're doing stuff on the same level as 4-year students and masters, it really does help their confidence. And that's the main thing. I think most of these students suffer from the issue of confidence, right? Like I see them and I talk to them on exams and I look at their tests, like, what happened here? And they say, no, but I got nervous. And then the next semester when they have it, they're more confident when they take the test. Their grades are a lot better because they're not second guessing themselves. How many times I've seen students erase the correct answer and then do it incorrectly? Way too often, right? But when they get over that hump, they do a lot better.
I want to add to that it's known fact that even best students from community college, when they transfer, their grades drop. And honestly, I think there should be some kind of study. I never came across of any study what causes this drop, because we know that's a fact. What Dmitry said probably have one of the factors that it's psychologically, they found themselves in the classroom with people who've been there for some time. If that is the reason, then yes, the summer research helps because they feel more comfortable in the college because they spend at least 6 weeks there. Another thing that can help, the fact that they work with undergraduate students, so they can get some valuable information from these undergraduate students. But again, to answer this question, there should be some kind of study, which I never saw, probably should be done in the 4-year school. What really what's a factor that we observe? It's observed everywhere. Best students, the grades drop.
Yeah.
And again, it should be addressed. But I believe that definitely to be on the campus will help students to succeed. That's absolutely.
They get used to the culture of that school, right? It's, I mean, I think we've all gone through it, right? Freshman in high school or freshman in college, oh, this is all new. And then after by senior year, okay, I know where to go get food, I know where to do this. And I think that 6 weeks it doesn't hurt. But yeah, a study would definitely help to see what specifically is best for it, right?
And-
Or what causes it.
And if this study is done, then maybe it can be part of the summer research experience to address this whatever issues that negative issues for students can be addressed during this summer research to fix that.
As a follow-up to that, I'm curious, in terms of the students in your population, their success rate is fantastic. Is there a major contributing factor to their success? Is there one thing over all others that really contribute to their success?
I think that for we never, take into consideration that these students are young people, and the emotional factor is very important for them. So they get emotionally motivated to do something. No, I want to do this, and then they don't go to parties. They just focused on this one goal. So we don't take into consideration very often that there is emotional component to their success. So that's, I think, this motivation, this goal, not just you pass the class, but the long-time goal, and especially if they meet someone from 4-year school or graduate students, that's a big factor for success, I believe.
Yeah, and a lot of the students that we have are first generation college, right? Nobody in their family, some of them parents don't have any high school education. So for them, yeah, they see that long-term goal of, I can get a job, I can get a really good job, I can do something interesting in the field, right? I can be like not like everyone else, but I can be better than what it is. And then we've had many siblings in our program, right? One year we had a brother, then a sister, and then it's and then it becomes this competition within them, right? Who can do better? And that's what I'm saying. I think for you would be a little bit better if you give it enough time. It will previous year students will motivate future students, especially if you have siblings one after the other, and then they all want to, one went to NJIT, then the other one goes to NJIT, and then they all kind of follow in their same footsteps. Well, I'm a mechanical engineer because my brother was a mechanical engineer.
It's also, I think it's useful at the community college level to talk a little bit more about graduate school, because very few students from community college know that they actually can get paid to be in graduate school. And I think this factor that they find out being in research from graduate students, that's also a big motivation, that it's not something that they will have to find support, but they will get paid.
Thank you.
Hi, Richard at Middlesex County College. Just a question, in addition to the stipend, can you talk a little bit about what type of support you give these students through the summer program, support mechanisms? And then if they were to transfer to one of the Alliance schools, do they get any additional support as they move on in their journey?
That's a very good question. I will start with the second part of your question. Originally, the idea was that any Essex student any member of LSAMP at Essex automatically become an LSAMP member in this 4 years, or the 4-year School of Alliance. Unfortunately, it's not always work this way because 4-year schools also want to have some selection process, and I think this is some disadvantage which I try to eliminate. But ideally, that's ideal way of doing this. Yes, when student transfer, usually I contact the coordinators in 4-year schools, and students become LSAM members in the 4-year schools. And 4-year schools, usually I tell them have more money, so they can get better financial support. They will have more programs. So yes, we try to continue the services as they transfer. Does it always happen? No, it does not always happen. It depends how it's established in schools, but this is the ideal, that's the ultimate goal, to have this done. And to answer your question, no, besides the stipends, we have this placement. We have weekly meetings. Students bring like 1 or 2 slides to show us what they accomplish during week or 1 or 2 weeks of the program. So kind of help them in this sense. But I don't know what exactly you meant by additional support, but no, once they accept it, we pay them stipend. To be completely honest, we left them with the advisor in some way. We don't interfere in the relationship between advisor, the faculty in 4-year school, and the student. It's really, they establish relationship and they work together.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've noticed, it's not always the case, but usually that group kind of takes them in as their own student, right? So when they have to make those posters, the students help them make the poster, the advisors work with them, right? They treat them as one of their own. So they do the presentations for us weekly, right? And we guide them through what they're gonna need to present, how they properly present, how to build the abstract, how to write things. But more or less, the advisor kind of takes over. And then we leave them, and they are just like every other student working on research over the summer there.
Right, just like parents and children, we think it's negative effect if we will try to interfere. Yeah, we leave them for 6 weeks to be on their own in some way. If they are unsuccessful, that's also experience that they have. But we resolve the conflicts if there are any conflicts, which happen sometimes. Professors are not happy, students are not happy. Yes, we help in this way. But besides that, they are more or less on their own.
And that's where they really grow the most, because now they have to, they kind of have to fend for themselves, but they have to work well with others, right? We're not going to hover, and we're not going to tell, okay, talk to this person, go shake, right? They have to come in, they set a schedule with the actual professor, right? So on average, we expect them to be there 4 days a week for 6 hours every day. But they work with the advisor, right? So the advisor may say, okay, you can come in 3 days a week, but you're gonna work 9 hours every day, or some other kind of variation. And so we kind of let them be more flexible, right? To build that rapport with that faculty member that they're working with.
To address your question, it's a very important part of the process to select a well-organized students. It's a key to success. The grades are not that important. But if we do not select, when I select students, I also tell them, you are showing a face of Essex County College. If you do not come, if you don't perform well, next year, this professor will not take, our students. So yes, they must be motivated and organized. Then it works. It won't help if you go there and take attendance or do anything of that sort. I don't know if that's what your question about other services. I'm not sure.
But
it was more academic support services, like if someone's struggling with their research, are there additional?
I believe in ability of faculty to identify a project that it is a level of the student. It's really up to faculty to adjust the project if the project is not at the level. It's not, you cannot do much if you. Students sometimes told me, came back and complained, they said, I wish we studied this topic in class, because like we need it. But again, it's up to the professors, and that is important for us to send students that haven't sufficient requirements. But sometimes I'm open with the professor. I said, this student have no background enough background in physics or science. Do you have any basic projects? And many professors said yes. Many faculty said yes, I can teach this student this program, or I can do things. Though there are projects for entry level, but again, it's up to the faculty to identify a project for community college students. And most of the time, they do understand the level, and they come up with a good projects. There are lots of softwares that students can learn.
That's also the other thing, right? And that's where from getting jobs, they get familiar with, and we tell students all the time, get familiar with the software and the actual tools in the lab, right? If you're going to work in a lab setting, understand how to use the machines, how to use the software, because our Essex County College doesn't have all of the software available. It doesn't have all of the tools. But when they're in the lab, they can actually learn how to use, for instance, all the different machines, right? Learn the different types of software that may not be available to us. And so no, and the faculty have been really good for the most part. They really see the level because they want to get something out of it too, right? So then they don't usually throw the student in the deep end, because they rather have them do a small incremental part. And it for the most part, works very, very well.
And as Dmitry said, we have to keep in mind, for over these 10 years, I see a big shift towards students working more with learning software rather than really working with equipment, because even electrical engineering, now it's all about softwares, and we cannot afford these softwares. They cost like, I remember software costing $1,000 or something. So that's what I tell my students, learn this software, because that's what you put on your resume, and that's what is used in the industry. And you don't really need much skills to start learning new software. That's a good project for community college student. Even if they don't have a project, sometimes I recommend them to learn Unix or like computer system like that.
Nadia, Dmitry, thank you so much for your enlightening presentation.